So what kind of impact will questions about the election process have as Texans start to vote? We'll put the question to our experts, Bob Garrett from the Dallas Morning News and Mike Ward from the Houston Chronicle. Thank you guys for being with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
So everyone's been kind of talking about, is this election rigged or not, based on what Donald Trump has been saying. Do you think that's really resonating here in Texas? And I know we've already talked voter ID to death here in Texas, but is this something that Texans are really going to pay attention to?
Some Texans I've talked to, it does not resonate, although there is a group in Texas that it does resonate with. They are convinced that there's a lot of people who are voting who shouldn't be. They can't give you any details. It's just some sense that they have. So that's one of those issues that in some respects it appeals to a base, and beyond that, people may not care.
What do you think?
Well, paradoxically, we don't have all the numbers, but I think voter registration is way up. So I think there is more interest in this race and in this year's choices than there has been in the past. And and Texas, as you know, has been a low participation state. So, I mean, I think that Trump rigged line is part of a larger appeal to people who are pretty alienated, pretty mad at all kinds of big institutions, and somewhat credulous. I mean by that, they'll believe a lot that isn't necessarily factual.
Now, it'll be really exciting to watch voter turnout here in Texas on election night, considering the new University of Houston poll putting Trump, just 3 points ahead. That's pretty close.
Real close. And I think that has got, I know that has the Republicans, a lot of the Republicans in Texas, questioning where they stand at this moment. And that's why there's a big push out for turnout to try and keep Texas from going purple. I think that the numbers are showing that there's going to be Democratic trends probably in some of the larger cities, and it's possible that places like Harris County may go Clinton.
And the collar counties, Collin and Denton, Williamson, Montgomery, it'll be really interesting to see if turnout is depressed by, some religious conservatives can't abide Trump, things like that.
You think people are really paying attention to the word that, Hillary Clinton had the ad buys here in Texas, even though it wasn't that big? It seemed to kind of be a splash on the headlines for just a second.
I think that if she comes within 5 percentage points of Trump, that I think it does reopen the effort of the Texas Democratic Party to get some money and start recruiting for candidates, not just for 4 years out, but two years out, which is not usually good for Democrats, those midterms.
I think that's true. I think they'll use that as a way to build some kind of campaign for momentum of their triumphant return to Texas.
Well, and when you've been as down as they've been, that will be like the crack of dawn, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, do you expect any of those down ballot races here in Texas, at least on the state level, to really be affected at all?
No. The obvious congressional race, Will Hurd and Pete Gallego rematch. I think, it's really Texas House races, and there may be a half dozen or so Democrats could pick up.
And what do you think?
I think that's true. I think there's some races in San Antonio that are going to go to the other party. There's some races in Houston, some of those down ballot races. I think you'll probably see some of the local races for the local offices potentially go dim. The increase in registrations in Texas is indicative of something. Exactly what, we're not going to know for sure until after the election's over with. But I think there's a lot of people who, in this particular election, have been motivated by the issues, either things that they are voting for because they don't want something to happen, or they're going to go vote because they want something to happen.
Well, let's talk about that last presidential debate. One of the things that struck me about it was when Hillary Clinton started speaking about abortion, because obviously that's been such a huge topic here in Texas in the last couple of legislative sessions. Do you think that kind of stir up anything in Texas, or was this debate something that really probably won't have an effect here?
I think if some of the religious conservatives who've been shying away from Trump saw the first half of the debate, they would have liked that. They would have liked his answers on the Second Amendment, on the Supreme Court. They would like that. I think if they watch the full debate, they might be back wondering if they're going to vote or if they're going to vote for the Libertarian.
I agree with that. I think that this election is weird. I've covered a number of elections. No shocker there, but there's a lot of really twists and turns here, and this whole movement issue that Trump keeps putting out there, there's some element to that. If you talk to the Trump supporters about why people are voting for him, why they're still sticking with him despite everything, is it enough to win the election for him? Well, the numbers would indicate otherwise at this point, but there's some element of outsider, sort of an anti-establishment fever across the country, and it will be interesting to see how that plays out as far as his numbers.
It definitely will have, if he loses, it will still have, his campaign will have had an effect, I think, on two issues. Immigration, I think Democrats, Republicans are going to have to really put a big focus on border security as part of any deal on comprehensive immigration reform. And trade deals now. I think that there's no longer just sort of this trade deals, okay, most everybody's for them except unions. There's a lot of people this election has shown that feel they've been hurt by trade deals. So I think those two issues will be handled differently even under a Clinton administration.
What do you think about the fact that that Donald Trump really hasn't had a definite answer about whether he would accept these election results? He's kind of given an answer, but that seemed to upset a lot of people, especially on debate night.
It's stunning. His apologists, like Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, try to say, "Oh, it's just like Al Gore in Florida initially after the 2000." I don't think it's like that. I think this is raises sort of a clear implication that he's not going to accept the results, and thus whoever won is illegitimate. We've heard him do this before with the birth certificate issue.
I'm less surprised by that, frankly, because I think that's kind of a Trumpism. I would have been shocked if he would have said, yeah, I'll accept the results if I lose. Because, I mean, this is kind of not who this guy is, and he is playing to the suspense here, and he looks for some splash, and so he got some splash out of that, maybe not good. And frankly, a lot of the people that I've talked to of both parties here in Texas, outside the party leadership, they don't seem to care that much about whether he's going to concede or whatever, you know.
It's a really bad thing when you're this close to the election talking about yourself and not talking about voters. I think it shows, it speaks volumes about where he is, and that is, he's behind.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of bad things about this election from the start.
Right. We'll talk more about it in just a little bit, but a lot of people just don't like either Trump or Clinton, and they're looking for other options.